Okay, I want to talk about public feeding. So everybody has an opinion on mothers feeding in public places such as malls or parks. What's your opinion on it?
I think that if we are going to be promoting breastfeeding, as our government does, unless we expect mothers to be confined to their homes, public breastfeeding is going to happen.
Right, because babies need to eat.
Yes.
And we eat publicly.
Yes. And I hear some of the most ridiculous comparisons. Breast milk is a food product, and there is nothing wrong with feeding a baby their food in public. And if a mother wants to cover, that's fine. That often actually just draws more attention to what she's doing. Whereas if she just quietly sits down and feeds her baby, most people think the baby's sleeping. And people come up and tickle your baby's feet and all sorts of things. And, you know, in this country, we don't really have much of a problem with people being nasty to mothers who are breastfeeding in public. Usually you just get a smile. And if you just sit there confidently, people move on and don't sort of worry about it. I do know the odd person who's had a negative comment, and it tends to stick in our minds because it's very unpleasant and upsetting. But it's not overall like some countries where women are really shamed for breastfeeding in public.
Do you think public places, such as malls, are breastfeeding friendly?
Not really, because mothers should feel quite comfortable to sit on the benches and breastfeed, to sit in the restaurants and breastfeed. Unfortunately, some malls feel that mothers should be cooped away in toilets, and that's just absolutely not acceptable. I think the people who have a problem with public breastfeeding should go and eat their food in the toilets rather, or carry a blanket to keep on their heads.
That would be a funny sight.
Yes, it would. But certainly there are some mothers who don't feel comfortable breastfeeding in public, and that's their right to. And if malls were able to provide a room with a chair so mothers could feel comfortable however they feed their babies, because I know there are bottle feeding mothers who want to mix up bottles and heat them and that sort of thing. And if those facilities were available near a toilet, so mothers could go and use the toilet too, but certainly not in the toilet.
It doesn't
that would be
seem
helpful.
right to be in a toilet.
it's just unhygienic.
Yeah. So what about mothers who work? They obviously need to, I guess not breastfeed per se, but they will need to express milk while at work. Do you think that we are progressive enough to have workplaces that have a breastfeeding area for mothers?
Some certainly do. The workplace where I work does, and it's a lovely
That's
one.
great.
Yeah. And I was on the committee that was involved, but I wasn't the driving force behind that, which was lovely. Our labour legislation certainly supports it. There's a Code of Good Practice to the Basic Conditions of Employment Act that states that mothers must be given 2 breastfeeding breaks of 30 minutes to either go home and feed their babies if it's close enough or the daycare is close enough, or to express. And knowing what we know about breastfeeding, that you need to empty your breast. Well, empty is a relative term. They're not containers that fill and empty, but you need to express that feed about every 3 hours as an absolute minimum. So when I see two breaks like that, morning and afternoon, then it tells me that the intention is that mom is breastfeeding during her lunchtime break as well. So either going home or expressing that milk. And it's really not a lot of effort for a company to convert a storeroom or a cupboard, a large cupboard, or find an empty office where people can just sit. They just need a chair, maybe a footstool, a table would be nice, a plug point is a nice touch, but many mothers are hand expressing or are using a manual pump, so a plug point is not the end of the world, and most electric pumps have battery options as well. A fridge is a nice touch, but once again not completely necessary, because a cooler box with an ice pack does the job just as well. Personally for me, I've breastfed 2 children while working, and I used a cooler box and an ice pack, and it was absolutely fine.
Okay, so you just need a quiet space.
Yeah, exactly. And just somewhere where people aren't walking past with a glass window or something.
Like here would not be a good space.